So let's talk about this. Let's talk about value. Okay, and let's talk about values coming in low.
This is one
Right.
where no compliance person ever wants to hear anyone say let's talk about value.
Let's take the ultimate problem in the mortgage industry, right? The appraisal comes in low. Okay, so like I'm an appraiser, so I'm a certified appraiser.
Sorry, Brian, we don't have time.
There you go. Right, Fritz is a former underwriter, processor, right, loan originator.
What?
And Toni, you were a former realtor and compliance officer. So I think, between the five of us, we or the three of us, we can kind of figure this out. So let's talk about if I'm a homeowner, if I'm a loan officer, I got a purchase, or if I'm a realtor, appraisal comes in low, right? What can I do? What I can't do? What did you see at the state that people did right or wrong? What did you see here that people do right or wrong? And what is the best approach? And Fritz and you, maybe us three can talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have some thoughts on that, but I'll let Toni respond first.
Well, first of all, there's a difference between what the federal law allows and what best practices should be. So I will start out by saying that. And oftentimes what AMCs will want or request of their appraisers as a result of trying to protect everyone involved in it. And what oftentimes our clients don't want to have happen to protect them with regard to federal law also. I'll start by saying, though, that on a whether it was as a state regulator or in my current role, I think that the very worst thing that anybody can do when they feel low value is to make threats. I have personally been threatened by real estate agents in my current role. I have been threatened by homeowners in my previous role. Of course, it impacts appraisers if it gets to the state level and a complaint is filed, and it's based on value. The appraisal subcommittee, who regulates whether or not a state is regulating properly for appraisers and appraisal management companies, they look at those kinds of complaints and make sure that they are dealt with properly. So all of that, the worst thing you can do as a lender, as a consumer, is threaten that you're going to take them to the board, threaten that you're going to not pay for the appraisal, threaten that you're not going to ever use that appraiser again and you want them removed from your panel. All of those things I consider under the threat side. So, Fritz, do you have anything you want to throw in there, or Brian as an appraiser, anything you want to throw in there?
So definitely don't threaten, right? So I think definitely don't threaten. Definitely don't. I would say definitely don't threaten, and definitely respect the process. I would say that, when you look at the idea of an appraiser going out and telling you his independent opinion of what you call the independent opinion of the value. And think about the idea that this guy spent all this time, or this woman spent all this time putting it together, making sure that it was right, turning it in knowing it would be scrutinized, and that multiple people would look at it, and then understand that it's coming from that perspective, rather than it being like, hey, can you guess between a number 1 and 10?
Right.
And you just coming up with your sort of off-the-chain answer. And I think if people really realize that, their approach would be different, because when they send in information or they request a change, realizing that somebody spent a lot of time on this already really changes the perspective of how you're going to go about our approach changing it.
Well, and there's a few other things I want people to keep in mind, okay? First things first. Not only have appraisers spent a lot of time to prepare that particular report, they've made a significant investment in both time, money, resources, everything for their life in order to become a certified appraiser to begin with. It is not an easy profession to enter.
Absolutely.
It's become a much more difficult profession to enter. And one thing that they're not going to do is write a careless report, which is going to cost them their livelihood. That's why they're also not going to respond to you threatening them. First of all, you should never threaten anyone for anything, because you're never going to get anywhere doing that. That just doesn't work. Number one. Okay. Number two, especially in an environment where, it's a professional environment and you're dealing with a professional. A lot of the problems I think that people have is, particularly with homeowners, borrowers, LOs, whatever, they don't necessarily treat the appraisers as the professionals that they are. They don't really understand how long it takes to become a certified appraiser.
That's
the
true.
amount of dedication it takes to
That's
become
very
a
true.
certified appraiser. It is not an easy profession. You don't fall into it. You don't just apply one day and get a job doing it. You have to spend a lot of time educating yourself to even get the job, and you have to continuously stay up to date on your continuing education. You're constantly reevaluated. In fact, as an appraiser, you're essentially evaluated on every single job that you do. Every job you do receives a very thorough evaluation from multiple parties, okay? So they're very conscientious and careful for the most part for what they put together. And you will not hear folks, other than appraisers for the most part, speak this way about appraisers in the appraiser profession. However, I've spent a lot of time talking to appraisers. I work with appraisers every single day. I have a certified appraiser sitting to my right. I've worked for him for 6 years. I've had these conversations many times, and the first things first, understand, and this is for all parties, it's not easy to be an appraiser. It's a difficult job. You're under constant scrutiny, and basically, if anything goes wrong with this transaction, every single party, the first instinct they have is to make the appraiser responsible or to try to pin something or blame the appraiser for whatever has occurred. And it's usually not appropriate to do that, because when you see a bad appraisal happen, it gets identified very quickly and it gets disqualified, because again, they're under a constant level of scrutiny on every single report, every single thing they do. So keep that in mind. Now, the other thing I'll say is, look, if you have a situation as either a homeowner or a lender where you're disagreeing with the value on a particular report, that's fine. You can certainly do that. You have the right to dispute it. You have the right to disagree with it. But you have to follow certain procedures, to go about addressing your concerns. And you have to understand that this is one area you cannot go outside your lane. Because if you go outside your lane and the appraiser, and you don't follow the proper procedures or way to handle things, the appraiser has the right, if they feel that they're being pressured, unfairly, to withdraw from the assignment. And that doesn't mean withdraw and not get paid. That just means they have the right to say, I'm not going to discuss this anymore because you're attempting to do something you shouldn't do, or you're not following a proper procedure.
Yeah,
Correct.
So keep that in mind. So what I would encourage people, if you have an appraisal that comes in low, what you need to do, don't get defensive, don't get angry, and don't start threatening people. No, get educated. Ask questions, You have a right to submit a reconsideration of value on that report if you have a legitimate concern or legitimate question. And the only way, you submit that, and then the appraiser then will provide a response. But research what you're asking. Do your due diligence, educate yourself.
And
Use
provide
this.
facts.
Use that's a good point.
Use this as an opportunity to educate yourself. Why were you wrong with what you thought the property was worth? What did you miss? You can learn that, on a report that comes in low, if you ask the right questions and you handle it in the right way. And then what does that mean? That means you're more accurate with your next one, and you're less likely to have value-related concerns going forward. So just
Toni,
something to keep in mind. Use it as an opportunity to learn.
Yeah, that's a great point, Fritz. So, Tony, to that point, right? So, I was in California all week visiting customers all across the West Coast. And, a lot of these guys, they get a job at a branch, or this is their second job. They're 25, maybe 35 years old, and they're new to the mortgage industry, and they get an appraisal. They've been spending 6 months trying to court this realtor to give them their first purchase, and they send an appraisal in, and boom, appraisal doesn't come in value. So obviously, and it's such a small percentage of deals that usually it's a pretty big deal when it happens. Obviously, nobody's in the business of, just like we're not in the business of throwing values, we're definitely not in the business of killing deals. But at the same time, a lot of times as a mortgage originator, you're frustrated. I don't know how to appeal this. I don't know what to do. So what, as a mortgage originator, give them some points to help them during this process of talking, what should they say to their realtor? What should they say to their borrower?
Sure.
What should they say to their AMC or appraisal desk?
Absolutely. And it is a frustration, and it is it is a huge aggravation when you are on the other side, because you understand that an appraisal is an opinion of value.
That's right.
And as a regulator, I saw 2 different reports come in over a $30,000 difference on about a $200,000 house, and I thought, oh boy, one of these has to be wrong. And you know what? Based on the support given, each of those reports was deemed to be a credible report, because even though that there was that much difference, because they each supported their value properly and with all information that was necessary on the federal level. Now, fast forward, if you get one of those and you are, again, it's making sure that you are looking at facts. And there is a difference between what someone is willing to pay and what a home is truly worth.
That's an excellent point.
Home buying is an extremely emotional experience, and we all think that what we are buying is the very best out there, and we want everyone else to say it's the dream home that they've always wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So it's highly emotional, and as a result, we as the professionals, whether we're a mortgage broker, a real estate agent, the appraisal management company, we have to maintain that professionalism and try our best to take the emotion out of it for ourselves. We have to acknowledge the fact that our client, the buyer, the borrower, the refinancer, that they are frustrated, that they're hurt. And so we have to look at it from the facts. And so we have to say, Mr. Borrower, do you think this home is worth more? So I will say, too, as a good real estate agent in a hot market, you are prepping your home buyer that there is a chance that they're purchasing a home above value, above purchase price, there's a chance that the value in the appraisal report, the opinion of value, may not come into what they're paying for it. I think that as a real estate agent, you have a due diligence to just tell your clients there is a chance that could happen because this is a hot market, whatever. But in the event that happens,
there's a real chance that could happen. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I think that it's important that everyone prepare the borrower for that potential situation, because then if it happens, they can go back and say, remember we had this discussion, this is now what we have to do. And what they have to do is they have to look at the market legitimately, realistically, as a professional, and say, are there other homes out there in this area that could potentially be comparables that could be used? And they can't submit a value reconsideration or a reconsideration for other things. Perhaps the square footage they think was wrong. There's nothing in federal law that says an appraiser cannot correct an appraisal report for errors. However, no one under federal law has authority, permission, anything to actually demand that an appraiser change the value or any other opinion of theirs in the report. So as a result, it's a very fine line. You have to deal with facts. You have to make requests to say, can you please explain why X wasn't used? Or, could you use this as a comparable option?
So
Certainly,
I always thought, like, when it comes to your point, right? So you're a state regulator. You get a complaint. You got a value at $200,000 and a value at $220,000, and you think, one of these must be right? And then that is sort of like everyone's first opinion. And then you realize after doing it for a while, well, actually, both seem sort of right in their own process. And as you know, obviously, if you're buying a house, and the difference between 200 and 220 is the higher opinion, it can be frustrating. But at the same time, respecting the process is important in the sense of those opinions are valuable, right? Now, what do I need to put together on my side of the fence to make sure that when I do come back, or if I do want to go back to my lender, or realtor, or appraisal management company, or appraiser, what should I put together, knowing that it's an opinion, to try and say, hey, I think the 220, although the 200 is still correct, I think the 220 is correcter, and would like to either change the appraisal or use that one per se.
Well, first of all, when I would see them at the state level, it was often for a refinance situation, if that was the case, where you had one that was done a couple years before and it was higher than the current one, or vice versa. But in this situation, and occasionally on a purchase, we would see that kind of a situation where they were almost simultaneously done. And really, that is, me as an ANC cannot make that decision. That's a lender decision. If they choose to order a second appraisal, that is a lender decision that they have to make. We cannot in any way encourage that, because unless there has been a true faulty appraisal done in the first one, and we know that there have been standards violated by the appraiser, which happen so it's such a minute percentage. I mean, it's not even a 0.5% where that kind of a thing happens.
Yeah, it's exceptionally infrequent.
So we will not get involved in that situation on behalf of our clients. However, if our client wants to come to us and ask on an appraisal they feel that was low, we are more than happy to walk them through a value reconsideration process. Every appraisal management company handles those differently. We have a process in place that protects us and our lender clients from the attempt of undue influence on an appraiser. We certainly try to make sure that that never happens. We don't want that to happen. We want a true, unbiased opinion of value to be rendered by our appraisers. And as a result, Fritz had brought it up earlier, and it is very, very true. An appraiser can say no to an assignment up till the day that they're completely done with that assignment and they file that entire appraisal in their work file. If they at any point feel pressured in any way, they have the legal right to walk away. So you never want to make an appraiser feel as if they are being pressured, or that you are making an ultimatum, or that you're threatening them in any way. And our process has been designed to protect our appraisers, to protect our lender clients, and be able to walk them through that process. We also only allow one lender client appraisal reconsideration request. Now, there might be other revision requests that come in that have to be dealt with on a report, but we only allow the lender to submit one time a reconsideration of value with additional information. And so at that point, we have some great market leaders and some great relationship managers that walk our clients through how to do that if they don't know how to do it, or if they have never used our form before.
Yeah, and that's always been a tough. Now, Fritz, you have dealt with this in a completely different capacity, because you've been an underwriter, a processor, originator, all of that in between. And and then on this side, I mean, these come to your office, every day. So what have you seen, be effective and not effective in this?
So the most important thing that you need to do if you're doing a reconsideration is, first of all, respect the fact that you only get one of these, and understand what that means, because people tend to, when they have one shot at doing something, they tend to take it a lot more seriously than if they get to just go over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Okay? So the reason you have only one shot, one chance, is because past that it becomes an issue of, well, when do you cut this off? When do you say enough's enough, right? Because you're not supposed to be trying to influence the appraiser in any specific way, but if you're coming back to him over and over and over again on the same report with new comps every week, that's a clear attempt to influence, right? So you only get one shot. Make sure that you're looking at the data that you're submitting. First of all, make sure the data you're submitting is accurate. That's the first thing. And also make sure it's appropriate. If the subject property you have is 1,000 square feet, a sale that, even if it's down the street, that's 2,000 square feet in GLA, is not a comparable sale. Okay, so know that, and know that if the appraiser sees that and sees that giant variance in GLA, he's going to dismiss that. He's going to dismiss that as that's why I didn't use it. Now,
you know what's interesting, Fritz, is to that point is the number of times, like I was, doing appraisals in Virginia, and I was doing a condo in Virginia, and nice condo, nice condo, and I had 4 or 5 sales in the project,
right,
in Virginia,
that
were just like it.
Yep.
And the value came in low. And so the person goes to another building in D.C.
Yep. Yeah. Out of
and
market.
says, "Hey, use these 3."
Right.
And then you just think to yourself, "Well, I have 3 in the building."
Right.
Right. Like I couldn't use. Like it's comparable, so the most similar, would get used, not just the one that would hit the value. And a lot of times, in just sort of knowing this, or on the other side of the fence. As an appraiser from my side, what I would do is on the MLS software, when I start to do my data research to finding the comparables, I would actually remove the value element from the columns, right, on the spreadsheet, so that it's sort of like you got square footage, you got a picture of the house, you've got acreage, you've got garage, you've got lot size, you've got general characteristics, and you got your photos. And I would go through those, narrow them down to 10 or 15 from the hundreds in the market or in the general market, depending on how I was doing a search. And it's amazing how close you would come in value. There would not be a big range.
Right.
And I would use that as sort of like my baseline to say, okay, this is a great way of starting that process, right? These are the houses that I feel like are similar, and it really has nothing to do with value.
Well, and the reason that works,
and Fritz, you forget you're both in very metropolitan areas, and so you forget about some of us out here, like in Iowa or in some of in the Midwestern areas where we have some very rural.
That's true.
Towns.
That's true.
Well, true.
And so you have to be very,
Yeah, every market is different, and every market's going to have its own challenges. And we got to wrap it up here in a minute. But here's what I want to say, and this is the reason why I say that this is that's really a better way to approach it, and I would actually recommend that for appraisers. I hope and I think that that's the way most appraisers do it, because if you're looking at what makes it comparable, the one thing that you're not really going to look at as an appraiser is what the current value is or what the expected value is, because that doesn't matter. Is it the same bedroom count? Is it the same GLA? Is it the same age? Is it roughly the same finish? Construction quality, okay? All of those other factors, that's hard data that doesn't change, okay? The value changes depending on the market. The characteristics of the property do not change, obviously, unless there's a renovation or what have you. And that's why when you start looking at, this is why I say, look at your data, focus on data, okay? So that's why you have to look at it in that respect. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And Tony, you still there?
Nope, I think we're disconnected, actually.
Oh, sorry. No, it's no problem. That was fantastic, by the way. I mean, Tony's
a great guest.
Fantastic.
She's a great guest.
And this is going to be great content for the blog. I'm going to make sure that this... I'm
going to call back in real quick while you're doing
I'm going to make sure this specific video gets uploaded. But, that was good. That was good.
We're still on YouTube, right?
Yeah, no, we're still live. We got 3 people watching.
All right, so let's just wrap it up then for the YouTube audience, and we'll deal with the Blog Talk stuff after the fact. But yeah, this is the whole point of making the decision based on the data, okay? And to your point, if an appraiser's approaching their comp selection in that way, you know that they're getting the best comps because they're looking at what's relevant. Again, there's no emotion involved with how many bedrooms you've got.
Correct. And I think...
same can't be said for the expectation of value.
Correct. And I think, again, if I'm a lender, what I would do is really just focus on really looking at the appraisal. First of all, find an appraisal company that would work with you or work with a lender to help you. I mean, you shouldn't be on your own completely about this. But then also talk with the realtor, just set realistic expectations as far as that it is independent assessment that, more than awfully the appraiser is, it's in the best interest of the borrower to have the appraiser's most accurate, unbiased opinion. So we want to make sure that that's really in the forefront, but then also realize that very small percentage of these actually happen. So it's less than 3 to 5%
it's not very common.
of purchases. So when it does happen, just realize it's only every now and then, and a lot of it's market driven. So a lot of times you're in a situation where the market is changing, and it's going to happen more consistently necessarily in your market, or not at all because of the market conditions, and it's timeline. So there'll be a period of 3 to 6 months to where it happens very frequently, and then for the next year you might not have it happen at all because market conditions have adjusted.
Right, and they've caught up. The data's caught. Right, it's caught up to the market.
And sometimes, and just last point, because I know we got to wrap up, is that sometimes it's a good thing. More often than not, we run into purchases that there's multiple offers. They're way above the actual real value of the house, and they're just trying to get the contract in. So the appraisal coming in low is not always, and you've seen that, right?
Oh, sure, absolutely. I mean, look, I'll tell you right now, if I'm buying a property and the appraisal comes in low, I'm excited.
Yeah.
That's my opportunity to renegotiate myself a better deal. And that's what borrowers and homeowners need to keep in mind. That's particularly borrowers who are purchasing, okay?
Yep.
Typically on a refi, you already own the property. You want it to have that higher value because that means you have a better equity position, a better LTV position, a better rate usually. But if you're doing a purchase, particularly if you're the borrower or the realtor and you're helping someone do a purchase on a property and the appraisal comes in low, I understand you want to scrutinize that to make sure that it's accurate. That's fine, but that's actually a benefit to your borrower because that means they're going to pay less for that property. And more importantly, and most importantly, is you don't want them overpaying for that home.
Correct.
Okay, you're not going to get referrals if you're the guy who's overselling. If people are paying too much for the properties that you're helping them purchase, you're not going to end up getting referrals because people are smart. They're going to figure out that they overpaid for that property, and they're going to figure it out really, really quickly. So it's in everyone's best interest to make sure that we're dealing with what the data actually provides, what the market actually shows. And look, in some cases, that means, like Brian's saying, it's minor. It's usually about 3 to 5% because for the most part, realtors know how to evaluate the market conditions and they understand where the market is and they do a good job of setting pricing. Now, that being said, about 3 to 5% you're looking at a variance. But understand where if that comes in low, it actually can be a benefit to you and to your borrower. It doesn't necessarily have to be detrimental.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much. And sorry for the audio troubles. I know we have had multiple issues. I think we got it figured out. But we'll be uploading a version of this on our YouTube channel, shortened, and then you can always watch it on Blog Talk as well.
Right.
So thank you so much. And Fritz and I, anything to say?
No, we'll see you guys next week. We got a lot of exciting guests coming up. I can't wait. And we'll be putting out some more information on those upcoming guests soon. Awesome.
Excellent. Later, guys.
Thanks.